leave it alone. And if somebody can't make it, they can't make it. That's unfortunate, but it happens. But the committee or the board will decide what it thinks best, possibly next month. We'll look forward. Oh, yes, Supervisor Teske.
Since we started meeting at the fairgrounds because of the pandemic, how many times have someone on the board voted virtually?
I don't know if we've ever been able to record them, quite honestly. It's been, I think there have been attempts. I guess I probably, did we have somebody able to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe.
Two?
I
You know, so
Wagner did one.
was Chuck able to? I know we had lots of, I know we had a lot of technical difficulties with it. Chuck was on vacation. Okay. Was John able, was Supervisor Mastler able to register a vote from Branson? Okay. Well, we'll have to go back and withdraw that. Yeah, we couldn't hear it over the polka music in the background or the waltz. I cut his microphone. All right. Let's get somebody help Supervisor Mastler there.
No,
He's
it's
got
on.
He looks
No,
like he's
it's
got to
on.
come back and he can't
I
get
can
it
only give him a
over.
microphone. I can't help him beyond that.
All right, we're gonna move this along. We're gonna bring this back next month, please. When Mr. Felt sends these things out, review them, bring your thoughts. If we can get an action on this next month, great. If we have to table it again further, we could do that too. But it obviously does appear to be a pretty important conversation. All right, annual reports and other reports. So we have the KCEDC quarterly report. Mr. Nelson, please.
Is this on? Good evening. Thank you for having me here again. The last quarterly update that I provided was back in May, so we're sticking with our quarterly updates. If you remember from our last meeting, we talked a little bit about kind of where we were at. I was about 3-4 months into the job, working on our strategic plan. So I'll go through some of that to start with us. So with our strategic plan right now, if you remember, we had kind of these 4 overarching goals. If the computer catches up, there we go. So these are the broad goals that our 4 pillars within our strategic plan are hitting on. So business development, economic competitiveness, awareness, and capacity are the pillars. The 4 goals there are kind of the broad-based goals. And now in the months since I last met with you, working with my executive board, we have narrowed it now. We have 3 strategic actions that support each of those 4 goals. So in all, it's 12 goals, and we will be finalizing that report and sharing that out once it's all complete. But we have really moved beyond the strategic planning process right now. And in conjunction with doing that, we've been doing a lot of execution. So if you remember from our last conversation, we talked about our partnership with the chamber and ramping up our business retention and expansion program. So that's what BRE program is. So just a refresher for all of you, what do we do with business retention expansion? What does that mean? We're trying to align our business or community needs with what our strategic actions are. So as we've been developing that strategic plan, we've been trying to align our strategies with what our business community needs. We also are kind of mining for at-risk companies, those companies that may have some challenges up ahead. They might be looking to close, might be looking to relocate, those types of things. Obviously, a large portion of it is to provide information, resources, and relationships. So developing business-to-business networks and those types of things. And I guess I don't have to read everything there. So kind of where we're at with our BRE program right now. So we have completed 20 visits. That represents 513 employees in the county. We have 13 already confirmed for the month of September. The top issues that we have heard by and large from our business is talent, workforce, access to talent, which I know I had talked about at our last quarterly update. And the other one that's emerging is political environment. So just concern over the current state of politics, locally, nationally, et cetera. And through our BRE program, that last bullet point, we're working with an existing business in the county right now that is looking to acquire a business with a valuation of $5 million and relocating it here to Kewaunee County. Progress is going very well. We're working with the state on some financial resources for that business. So I would hope before the end of this year, that business will move out of Brown County and into Kewaunee County. Kind of the next big area for us is grant support. So in terms of grants, this dollar amount, $288,703, that is a confirmed cash in hand to our local businesses here in Kewaunee County. So that is a direct result of the facilitation through the EDC that we've provided. Outstanding support that we have out there right now. We have provided letters of support and supporting information for the city of Kewaunee. That's the 3.6. They are pursuing a $3.6 million grant for an industrial business park. Just last week, I supplied a letter of support to a $30 million broadband project that the county is working on with Charter. And the question mark is, I guess, when the next opportunity arises, which brings me to my next opportunity that we're working on right now. Obviously, the transition of the nuclear facility to energy solutions is progressing nicely. It's still moving through some of the regulatory process. We anticipate the transition to officially happen sometime near the end of this year to early next. But what we are doing to get out in front of that is, some of you that may remember when it closed, the EDC did a lot of different studies and projects in collaboration with the Manitowoc EDC as well as Brown County. And now what we're doing is we're exploring the possibility of pursuing some EDA grants partnered with state EDC grants to do a redevelopment feasibility and redevelopment plan for that property with that accelerated timeline of 8 to 10 years. This was something that when the plant closed, we didn't think we were going to have to worry about for a long time. So we're getting out in front of that. And so far, the feedback that we've gotten on that as a potential economic project for us has been very, very strong and very supportive. So I look forward to moving that one a little bit further down the road. In addition to grants, some of you may have seen the announcements for the Main Street Bounce Back program. That is money that was allocated through the state from some of their ARPA funding, designed to help any businesses that have occupied a vacant space in a commercial or mixed use zoned area. We have probably 10 or 11 businesses that have already reached out on this particular program. Basically, what you need to qualify for it, you need to have a lease or mortgage or acquire the property and fill it sometime after January 1st of 2021. And that program will carry to June of 2022. It is not available to chains or franchises, so Tractor Supply would not qualify for this program. But what they need to show is they need to show some of their financial information as well as proof of lease or mortgage, and then it's $10,000. So our role in this program, the grants applications are going to be processed by our regional partner, Bay Lakes Planning Commission, and KCEDC is the acknowledgement letter piece of that. So any business that applies for this in Kewaunee County also needs a corresponding acknowledgement letter from the EDC verifying that they were occupying a valid space. So we're kind of the boots on the ground truthing that for them. The Workforce Innovation Program, that's another one that is coming out through the state and still actually in development right now. But that's $130 million that is going to be allocated to workforce generating programs and solutions. So obviously with talent being one of our top issues, this is a program that we're still getting the pieces on. And then also the federal grants, because of the nuclear plant and what is going on there, it enables us to apply for a lot of different EDA grants as well. So, after my last update, there were a few follow-up questions, and I know collectively the board has always been curious about return on investment in terms of what the county contributes to the EDC and kind of what does that money do and what is it doing. So to try and to put this into a numerical format for you, this is the economic value added equation that a lot of corporations and businesses use. So the economic value added is a measure of a company's financial performance based on the residual wealth calculated by deducting its cost of capital from its operating profit. And it also could be referred to as economic profit. So obviously it's very difficult to capture all of the things that we do in terms of BRE and all of those resource alignments. But ultimately what this equation represents is kind of the rate of return for the investment amount. So just using those dollar figures that we know for sure have come into the county, that $288,000 grant funding. So that represents our NOPAT. The WAC number there is 10%. So that is just a number I pulled out of the air as it represents the rate of return that you would want on your investment. So typically the S&P 500 tracks about 7 to 8% over the course of its lifetime. So I thought 10% was a generous ask. The county's investment there is $40,000. So the economic value added just through that grant program is $284,703. Oops, I skipped a slide. So if you look at it from this perspective, that $40,000 with just that grant funding alone is a 612% return when you calculate out the economic value added. So that's pretty significant. Just to play with numbers, I didn't put a slide together for this, but if those other two grants that we've written letters for support hit, now granted, it's hard to say whether or not our letter of support swayed the decision maker on those grants or not. But if the $30 million grant comes through, that increases that economic value added to over 84,000%. If the 3.6 million hits, that's about a 9,000% increase on that $40,000. So I'm trying to kind of highlight some of what the investment is returning to our community, and obviously $300,000 in the hands of our businesses is valuable from a number of fronts. They're spending that money here, investing it in their employees, and expanding the tax base for us. Just a couple other stats that I pulled last minute. I know in my last presentation, I gave the unemployment numbers for our county. So currently, Kewaunee County is at 3.2%. In comparison to the state is at 3.9. Nationally, it's 5.4. To compare our county unemployment rate at 3.2 currently, in June of 2020, it was 6.5%. And in June of 2019, pre-COVID, it was 3.4. So our unemployment rate is actually lower now than it was before the pandemic, which also speaks to why we're having the issues with talent and workforce right now. Looking at housing permits between last year and this point in this year, so far in 2021, we have 29 active housing permits, which in 2020, we had only 9. So that's a 222% increase in that. And then looking at our percentage of population that is employed, in 2019, 96.6% of our population was employed that is of working age. In 2020, that number dropped to 93.5, and it is currently 96.8. So we have more people employed now than we did prior to the pandemic. With that, if anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. I also would like to point out, we have a new member of your board that is joining our board. Supervisor Massler will be joining the KCEDC board along with Gary Poppy. So we look forward to having him at our board meeting tomorrow. With that, I'll take any questions if there are any.
Must have been such a thorough presentation. There are no questions. All right. Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you.
Mr. Felt, you have a report?
Just a couple things, Mr. Chair. Our public health director, Cindy Kinnard, will not be here tonight, so she had sent me some information just as kind of a short COVID update. We have 45 active cases. Our vaccination rate for the county is 43.4% compared to the state, which is 53.4. So we're 10 percentage points lower than the state. Our age range that's showing the greatest increase in positive cases is the 31 to 49-year-olds. And second would be those under 18. Spike in cases may be partially due to having several outbreaks, one within a childcare institution and in 2 local businesses, or just local businesses, I'm sorry. We also have that all 3 school districts have opted to go mask optional for the start of the school year. Public health continues to meet with school nurses and school officials to assist in their school planning. For those of you that have paid attention to the news, a booster dose is now recommended for those that are severely, and I'm going to screw up the word, immunocompromised individuals. So those that are severely immunocompromised, they are recommending a booster dose, but those that are considered severely immunocompromised have specific criteria to qualify. I'm not going to go through all of those, but those are the main highlights from Cindy.
I'm sure you have an answer readily available. The number of cases that we have, the 45, what percentage of those were vaccinated?
I do not have that.
Oh, I thought for sure you would.
I do not have that.
All right.
And then,
But it would be interesting to know if they have that information. I assume they do.
gotcha. And then last but not least, and actually Mr. Nelson had alluded to it. I spent a good part of the afternoon today making sure that the grant with Spectrum Mid-America Charter, Spectrum Mid-America was submitted to the federal government. So that has been submitted today and acknowledged that it has been received. As for exactly when we will know whether we are awarded, that I am unsure of, but again, it is a $30 million project. So hopefully I have good news to share with all of you
And
at a later date.
have no further information as to when Bug Tussle will be providing service to anyone
I can not at this present time. Again, they had said to me
any day now.
to the end of August, which still gives them 2 weeks.
Okay, yes, Supervisor Lukes.
We are supposed to be hooked up to Bug Tussle next Monday. We have an appointment, so apparently they're going to be in business.
Are they gonna be there between noon and 4 or what time?
Something like that, yes. But they have promised that they are going to be hooking us up, so on Monday.
Well, let's hope it's so. All right, moving on. Committee reports, Highway Solid Waste Committee. Any questions there? Executive Committee, I do have a question on that. As long as I have you here, some of you won't care about this, but Supervisor Poppy asked if that meeting that is scheduled for September 13th at 6 o'clock could be moved to 5 p.m. Supervisor Yonke, can you get the cars done by then? Might have to go virtual. No, can't do that. I would like to avoid moving it all together. People kind of have that scheduled and, I mean, would moving it up to 5 PM be? Yes, sir.
I'm not available that day. I'm going to be out of the country, so I was going to talk to you about that after the meeting.
Afghanistan or?
You never know.
September 13th. You have a problem, Masteler?
Pigeon Forge.
Oh, for the love of. I don't believe it. Yeah, I know he's not making it up. So what works for you? Supervisor Augustine, 5, 6, another day or what?
Can we do 5:30?
5:30? What about the 20th? Does the 20th work? At 6? Do I have any objections to that? All right, you're going to be back from the Lawrence Welk Theater by then, Masteler?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Be sure to bring me a souvenir, would you? September 20th, executive will be September 20th at 6 PM. And I know that Supervisor Masteler is going to bring me something nice. He'll give me a gift.
I'll
As he often does. All right. Public Health and Veterans, anything? Any questions? UW Extension Committee, on that, I am intending to appoint Stephen Agamite, to that committee. He did not get me a decision though, but in time for this meeting tonight. So that didn't happen tonight, but that's my intention. So they'll be fully staffed. If that's okay with the chair of that committee.
You're the appointing
Okay.
authority, Mr. Chair.
Well, if there's strong feelings, I don't want to tick off my committee chairs. If you guys have a request, I certainly will honor that.
It'll be nice to have everyone, a full committee.
Yes, Land and Water, anything? Public Safety and Justice? Yes.
I had somebody approach me. I'm assuming it's public safety and justice, or it could be the public safety facilities study. Apparently, you're still doing one of those committees or both
Yeah,
committees.
that comes up down the
Online?
line.
Are you still
Yep.
having it online so people can?
Oh, I don't know if
Watch
it's
it.
online every time. Tomorrow, we're actually going to be meeting at 7 AM tomorrow morning with the architect.
Because-
The architect will be virtual.
Because I had somebody approach me and said that committee or both committees or whatever are not using the mics. So the public who's ever watching it can't hear what the members are saying.
Okay.
So I just want to
We'll do our
let you know as a
best.
reminder to turn your mics on so the public can hear what you're
Sure.
talking about. Thank you.
We'll do our best. Public Safety and Justice Committee, any other questions? I have a question since the sheriff is here, if you're okay answering a question. With all of the illegal immigration that's going on in the country, flooding the southern border, I am assuming some of these people here illegally are eventually going to make it to Kewaunee County if they haven't already. If the sheriff's department becomes aware, which almost certainly they would at some point, what are they required or authorized, or what do they do?
Right. So absolutely. We've had those new folks to our community here for many, many years, decades, that they've been coming up, working here, raising families here. Kids have been in school with our kids. As it relates to their status, we at the local level don't get involved in national immigration policy. So if we interact with them, let's say it's a traffic stop, it's a minor offense, we're going to treat them just as any other individual. Now, whether or not they have a status, what their status is as a resident or as a citizen doesn't really even play in. Now that changes if we get into more serious crimes. So that's where our relationship with immigration officials comes into play. So we do maintain a very workable relationship with ICE. And if we get to the point where there is a violent crime, we're going to work with them. We're going to notify them. In return, ICE also does give us notifications if they have a detainer, if they have information on someone that may be in our county, and they have come into our county to apprehend those individuals, and we will assist them in those actions as well. So again, I've gone out and I've spoken to employers for years. They ask me to come in and speak with their workers, and the first thing that I do to try to comfort them is I'll say, not ICE, right? Not ICE. And that's a huge comfort to them. Why they're here, how they got here, don't know, don't care, right? They're here. That's that'd be like me giving comments on national security or our defense policies. That's federal, we're local. So what I tell them is, you're here, how you got here, don't know, don't care, but you're here. Obey our laws, right? Raise your families, do what you have to do, and you'll be treated as any other citizen. Violate our laws, and you'll be treated like any other person as well. However, when those violations go into that higher bracket, index crimes, felonies, things of that nature, we will work proactively with ICE to make sure that those individuals are held accountable. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, I mean, sadly, I think it does. So if they're breaking immigration law, and that's where I'm not the expert on the legal aspect. I mean, federal, state, and so forth, but yet they're breaking the law,
Correct.
Being here illegally. But you can take no action.
Right. I mean, when it comes to us doing anything with them, I mean, there's agencies that deal with if there's fraudulent activity like social security numbers identification. That again is a whole nother realm, and that's usually investigated at the federal level. We'll assist if and when they decide to push that investigation and identify. And you've seen those over the years where they'll go into an employer and, bring some folks out that have been here illegitimately, don't have proper identification, we'll assist. But what I'm saying is at the local level in our day-to-day activity, we go to a house because of a barking dog complaint, and we can't determine that they're actually a citizen of our country. We're not going to all of a sudden jump into immigration law and say, okay, we need to see papers, we need to see proof. We just need date of birth. We need to be able to identify them for our records, make sure there aren't any record of them. I mean, we're still going to run them through all of our checks, state and federal checks. If there's no record of them, we keep it on file locally, just like we do anybody else.
But if you stopped them for speeding, you would become aware, wouldn't you, that they were not here legally?
Yep. So they're here. They don't have any license. We're going to cite them for operating without a valid DL. This has been an ongoing conversation again for decades. The state has talked in the past about providing some sort of state ID for these individuals that don't have an actual identification like citizenry. They've said, okay, let's get them some sort of a state ID. It doesn't give them any benefits, gives them nothing more than a way for us to identify them, as well as the ability to drive a vehicle. Because again, they've been here for decades. Some of these folks have been literally raised in our county, but now that they're of age to drive, they can't drive because they're not citizens. You wouldn't be able to separate them from any of the other kids they're in a classroom with, but they can't drive because they still haven't worked that out. That's a federal issue. So all we can do is cite them for operating without a valid DL. They do it again, we cite them for operating after revocation. We actually have people, unfortunately, that we have processed through our local criminal justice system into our jail and house them because they've been in these violations only because of the flaws in the federal laws. So they really are. It's an interesting catch where there's no clarity. There hasn't been clarity for decades. It'd be nice if it happened, but all we can do is deal with them at the local level. And so again, unless they've committed a serious offense, an index crime, we're basically just identifying them, dealing with the violations, and moving them through the system. And the majority of them do pay their fines, go to court. They do all this, even though they're non-residents. Because again, state law, federal law. We're not going to get involved in trying to enforce or pursue federal law at the local level. So it's odd, but that's how it plays out.
So they show up to court and everything else, and we know they're here illegally. We know they're violating our laws by being here, and they'll show up to court and nothing will happen. They'll just be released.
And in some cases, even when we do have those greater index crimes we have in our jail released into ICE, depending on their process, they may still not end up necessarily deported, or they may still end up back in the community. So again, this is a bigger scope of an issue than what we have locally.
Wow.
So Sheriff, just to be clear then, if you encounter someone that you know is here illegally, which is a violation of the law.
Yeah.
You don't have any obligation to report that up higher. I understand you may not have local enforcement, but you would not report that up to the higher officials, the federal officials that, hey, we've got someone here illegally, broke our national law, and let them take over?
Depending on the scope of the offense. We would, I mean, if it's depending on the scope of the offense,
That
much like
offense
a,
itself isn't enough?
nope.
Supervisor Chesky?
Where is the nearest ICE facility? Is
Milwaukee.
Wow.
So we had, in fact, shortly after the previous administration took over, and there's a lot of statements talking about, being a little bit tougher in the enforcement. We had a lot of local anxiety with the families, with the folks here in Kewaunee County. So we actually invited a staff member, an agent from ICE, to come up and brief us to say, okay, what's the difference? And, he said, really, the policy hasn't changed. If you go back 3 administrations federally, the policies have pretty much remained the same. Sometimes one administration's a little tougher in their posturing or their talk, but in the end, it's kind of been about the same. Where it's a matter of, and the agent said there's 4 of them through the whole state. He's out of Milwaukee. He's covering the entire Eastern District. I mean, if we called them every time somebody blew a stop sign, it's beyond their realm to even facilitate, right? So it's a problem. It's a dysfunctional system, but it's not a dysfunctional system that we in local law enforcement have any authority in or any ability to change. So we got to work within our realm.
Is any action taken against the business owners who are hiring people who are not legal? They're not legal citizens. Is when you discover this, is this reported in any way? Is any action taken?
Now that's a different realm. And yes, there is. So when they start to get information that there's people being employed illegitimately, false identifications, false use of Social Security, that's being taken care of, that's being followed up on. And that's where you get these large investigations where they then remove them, process them through that district office in Milwaukee. But again, that's all we can do is deal with them at the local level with those offenses with the authority we have. I can't enforce federal law. That's not within our realm to enforce those kind of federal mandates. That falls in a different realm.
Is Milwaukee for the whole state of Wisconsin?
No, it's a district. So I believe they got Milwaukee and then they have Madison. So they've got that split. But that's a big footprint.
And what about up north then?
That's a big area up there. So no, they're traveling as far as they can. So I mean, the resources are limited. And with the volume that we've had come in over the years, and
So in other words, these hundreds of thousands of people who have come in illegally across our southern border, they are never going to be, not one of them is ever going to be removed, essentially.
Depending on the offense, depending on what
Unless
they
they
do, right?
commit a serious crime.
Yeah, most
Unless they
likely.
commit a felony, they will be here forever. They will be in our schools, being supported by taxpayers. We will pay to educate them. If they show up to our emergency rooms, we will pay for their medical care, and on it goes. Wow.
And there's a lot of specifics. Those that employ these folks, I mean, they are employable, right? They can still employ them. There's criteria, work visas, and so on. So there's a lot of different tiers and levels within the within the employment law that I'm not versed on. I don't get involved in it, and so it's not like they're all just absolute illegals. There's various levels of why they're here, how they're able to stay here, how long. So I think we have to be careful not to put them into a big sort of general category, because it is a very, it's a complicated issue and it has a lot of layers to it. So it's something that, again, I'm not going to try to brief anybody on because I don't fully understand it. I just know my parallel lines of where my authorities are and where we try to operate.
Sure. Well, thank you. I mean, I don't agree. It's complicated. We make it complicated. It's sad, but I appreciate the clarity on what you're able to do. Thank you. Finance and Public Property Committee. Any questions? Okay. Human Services Committee, any questions on those minutes? Parks Promotion and Maintenance, any questions? Business Development Loan Fund Committee. KCEDC, just had a report, shouldn't be any questions, right? Broadband Study Committee, shouldn't be anything. Yes.
Going back to the KCEDC, do they still meet monthly? I haven't seen any minutes from them in a long time. It's not in the packet.
There's a letter that was handed out this evening, Supervisor Teske.
Yes, I understand that, but usually there was always monthly minutes in our packet.
What the letter says is that that from now on minutes will not be distributed to county board because of the private nature of the organization. It makes it difficult for the executive committee to talk about business dealings that is proprietary to some of these businesses because they would not want that to be in the minutes, which then would be reported to a public entity, which would therefore now have to be made public. So instead, what will happen is there will still be quarterly reports, but there will not be monthly meeting minutes. And as an organization, having once served in a chamber of commerce as well as an EDC. As EDCs, we prefer not to have those types of minutes publicly because of the sensitive nature of businesses and business dealings. So if there are specific questions that you may have, though I don't want to speak for Mr. Nelson, I am more than confident that he is willing to come to the county board and answer any and all questions that Supervisors Mastler and Poppy could not answer for you.
Anything else? Public Safety Facility Study Committee, as we said, we're meeting at 7 a.m. tomorrow. We've made Supervisor Baker, any summary you want to give? Spent quite a bit of time on this, continue to work. A lot of work to do, but I think we're making progress. We'll be meeting with, make a lot of progress, and we'll be Venture Architects will be, John Kane will be virtual with us at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Right and early. Sheriff's Union negotiating. We had a meeting and we have another scheduled. Ordinances, we have none. First reading, consideration of resolutions.
A resolution approving receipt of state 85.21 and federal 5310 funds for specialized transportation services to older adults and persons with disabilities.
Do I have a motion? Supervisor Baker, do I have a second? Supervisor Haskey, discussion, questions? Okay, so we will vote on the machines and you may register your vote. And what's the number I'm looking for? 16? You have 16? I only see 13.
I don't have any.
Getting closer. You have 16? I only see 13. We'll be home by 10:30.
Supervisor Lucas, and
I don't have any.
your screen's dead.
Getting closer.
Yes.
We got feedback. Echo. We'll be home by 10:30.
Supervisor Lucas, and
Oh, there we go.
Thank you.
your screen's dead.
Closer.
Yes.
Echo. We'll be home by 10:30.
Supervisor Lucas.
I saw the logo.
Oh, there we go.
It was so
Thank you,
funny.
Supervisor.
That comment was so funny. They're replaying it over and over. All right, so 16 in favor, none opposed. Motion carries. I saw the logo.
Oh, there we go.
It was so
Thank you,
funny.
Supervisor.
That comment was so funny. They're replaying it over and over. All right, so 16 in favor, none opposed. You know, I'm gonna carry before of enjoying hearing myself talk. It was so funny. That comment was so funny. They're replaying it over and over. All right. Okay. Can you put me out of my misery? You know, I'm gonna carry before of enjoying hearing myself. Consideration of ordinance read at previous county board meeting. We have none. Communications. Do we have resolutions from other counties? Okay. Can you put me out of my misery? No, I'm gonna keep before of enjoying hearing myself. Consideration of ordinance read at previous county board meeting. We have none.